Alright, so this is a little PCB board I made to hold a Wii camera and adapt it to standard servo connectors, which I'm a big fan of. It's a little infrared shield. So I was going to show you how to make a circuit board the easy way. So let's get a little light here. Okay, so I've got a little chunk of circuit board here. I've got the old Wii PCB. I've got a chunk of proto board, any proto board, doesn't matter. Springy clamp, clampy clamp, and let's see what else. Well, okay, so here's what you do. So here is where the camera came out, and that's what we want to match. So here's a piece of circuit board. This one's double-sided, but actually in this case we only need single-sided, and if it were single-sided we got to be sure that the copper here lines up with the copper here, so they're both going, you know, the same direction. So we're going to line these up like that, okay, and we're going to put a springy clamp on them, okay. Then we're going to take a clampy clamp and we're going to clamp it on a second time like this, okay, nice and tight. Now we can pull the springy clamp off. Now we're left with, there's where the camera came out, and there is the board we're making. Ignore these holes. I just made this entire video with the camera sideways. So, okay, so next thing you do, go down to your model airplane store, hobby shop, and bring a board like this with you and get a drill bit. Don't go to the hardware store, they don't have them. Go to the hobby shop. This is a number 62, which is kind of standard size, which is oversized for the Wii camera, but it'll still work. But just bring a proto board and say, give me a drill bit that fits through one of these holes. And there you go. Ta-da. Okay, so take your drill bit and your board all clamped together, and now drill it. Okay, can you see that? Yes. Alright, now, you have to use a Dremel tool because the chuck on a regular drill is way too big and the bit will slip right out. You can wrap it in tape all day long, won't work. Now to get these mounting holes, which are a little wider, I'm going to drill on one side of the hole. I'm going to angle the bit a little and drill on the other side of the hole. Same on this side. And then I'm going to very, very gently walk the bit back and forth to wobble the hole out. Gently, gently, so you don't break the bit. And then the same with these mounting holes where the little plastic dealies fit. Okay. Done. Now, done with this. And look at that. Perfect. Now we need holes for our headers to solder on. So we're going to take this proto board. We're going to line it up. Doesn't have to be straight. This is just an example. Clamp it on. Then take this other clamp. I suppose you could use a spring clamp for both, but I found that it tends to walk a little bit. So if you use a nice strong clampy style, like an F-style clamp like this, that's that much better. Okay, so that baby's clamped on there nice and tight. Now we're going to drill the 6 holes for our headers to fit through. 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, almost everything in the electronics world is based on this grid pattern, which is 0.1 inches, a tenth of an inch by a tenth of an inch. So if you always use a proto board as a pattern to drill through, then your holes are always going to be spaced correctly. Ignore those. Are always going to be spaced correctly and always straight. So always use this as a pattern. Bada boom, bada bang. Now you need one of these guys. Come on, Dondo. This is fancy schmancy Scotch-Brite from 3M, automotive brand, and it's probably very expensive. You just use the green scratchy from under your sink that you do dishes with. Alright, and then you just got to polish this baby up so it's shiny and pretty. Okay? And if it's double-sided, both sides, the shinier it is, the faster it'll etch. Try not to use double-sided if you can avoid it, if you need single-sided, because it's just more copper that your etchant is going to be having to eat through, and it's going to clog your etchant. Okay, so there it is, all nice and shiny. And if you'll notice, our headers will fit right in there just perfect, and the camera will fit there just perfect. Next thing you do is you grab your other Dremel tool with one of these cutoff wheels. I recommend one that's a full circle, not a half a circle, and wear safety glasses because these just break all the time. They just explode constantly. So, at any rate, use that. You can cut out your board. A little 100 grit sandpapered around your corners, make it sort of pretty, and then some 320 just to make it soft and pretty soft. Okay, so there's all your holes drilled. The next thing you need are your Sharpies, which I put somewhere that I can't find now. Why didn't I set all this out? Here we go. So, has to be a black Sharpie, because black Sharpies are lacquer based. That's the only reason this works. And you can use the fine one, or you can use a regular one if it's new. And I would flick it a little bit so the tip is really saturated with ink. Okay, and then you just draw your traces in. Like, you want these two connected, so you draw a little pad around there, and a little pad around there, and then connect the dots. Anywhere there is ink, the copper will stay. Now, you're going to do all of these. These are not necessarily the right connections, I'm just demonstrating here, but you can connect anything you want like this. Okay? Draw your little pads in. Okay. Now let this sit and let it dry completely, and then come back and do it again. And if you run out of ink, or if the pen is removing the ink that's already on there, get the tip wetter by flicking it. And get it really saturated and get these really, really dark. You should almost see the ink raised on the board. It's so thick. Okay? Same with these mounting holes. You're going to need copper around them to solder to, etc., etc. Okay? That's it. Done. Simple. Period. Then you take this board and stick it in your etchant. Here's the Radio Shack etchant. It's 276 1576 for a item number. And you drop the board in the etchant, and then check it periodically to see how it's being etched, because you want to pull it out as quick as you can. After it's etched, all of this will be missing, and it'll just be the traces and the black ink left over. Grab some rubbing alcohol or some nail polish remover and wipe that all off. And then you go back to your green scratchy pad and polish it up again. Okay? This time you're just polishing the traces because everything else has been eaten away. And you ended up with a nice shiny copper, ignore that side, nice shiny copper board, but now with traces going to all your pins. And that's it. Done. Put your pieces through, populate your board, solder it. Oh, hey, if you are doing the ink thing, and let's say you bump two connections together like that, just grab your X-Acto knife, and very carefully you can separate them again, and just expose the copper, and there you go. So, black Sharpie. Don't use any other color. Use a proto board like I showed you as a drilling guide. That way your holes are always going to be straight, or whatever you want to follow, like the Wiimote pattern for the Wiimote. Etch it, clean it up, solder it, and you are done. And that is how I made this this nifty Wiimote camera breakout board. And there you go. How to etch a PCB board with the holes straight and simple